Good morning. This hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order. I want to thank the judges. Judge Palmar was here earlier. Thank you very much for personally dropping by. The clerk of the court, U.S. Marshal Service, and all the staff and court personnel for enabling us to have this hearing at the Dirksen Federal Courthouse. Grateful to all the people who work in this building. And I want to thank Mayor Lightfoot and the city leaders for welcoming our committee hearing. I serve as chairman of the United States Senate Judiciary Committee. It has jurisdiction over a lot of issues: lifetime appointments to the federal judiciary, civil rights, human rights, overseeing the system of justice, and protecting public safety. When we hold committee hearings, we are able to bring together federal government officials to testify on the record about these important issues. Part of my job is to make sure the federal government is doing all it can to address the challenges facing the city of Chicago, of course, and the state of Illinois. Today's hearing is going to focus on how to address an urgent challenge facing this city, communities across the country: gun crime and violence that threatens our neighborhood and families. Gun violence is a nationwide epidemic. Today, we focus on Chicago and Illinois, but at least 12 major cities have set homicide records in the year 2021. Why? Fewer cops on the street, reduced after-school programs, court systems pushed to the limit, and mental health issues exacerbated by COVID-19. Which cities am I talking about? Well, Philadelphia is pretty obvious, a city about comparable to Chicago, but it goes way beyond that. The new homicide records have been set in St. Paul, Minnesota. If you think you can go to the Sun Belt and escape them, sorry. Tucson, Arizona, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Louisville, Kentucky. Well, I'm going to move to Indiana. That ought to be safe. Indianapolis set a new homicide record. I mentioned Columbus, Ohio. Well, let's go down to a good red state with some tough people on when it comes to law and order. Austin, Texas set a new homicide record, the capital of the state of Texas. Baton Rouge, Portland, Oregon, Toledo, the list goes on and on. Cities and states, red and blue. In the Midwest, in the West, East, North, and South. Oh, it must be the new president. That's what it's all about. That's the problem. Sorry. The homicide rate increased 20% in the last year of the Trump administration. And arrests are down nationwide. Arrests, there were 10 million in 2019, 7.6 million in the last year of the Trump administration, a 20% decline. We have problems with people who are just basically fed up with being afraid. You hear from them every day, don't you? Your neighbors and friends are talking about it. Did you hear the latest about crime in the city of Chicago? We have fewer cops because of retirement and COVID. This morning's Chicago Tribune has a front page story about what's going on Michigan Avenue. I was on Michigan Avenue Friday night after going to a restaurant. There was a sea of blue lights. I understand that's fairly common now, and the people in the area are welcoming it because it really is a deterrent to flash mobs and street violence. We know the grim numbers in this city. Over 4,000 Chicagoans have been shot this year, 4,000. In Cook County, there have been more than 1,000 homicides, overwhelmingly due to gun violence. Much of this gun violence, about half of it, is concentrated in 15 neighborhoods, but we know the reality. No neighborhood is immune. And the problem, as I mentioned, is not just limited to this city in this state. This is not just about numbers. It's about real people, real lives. It's about funerals and young lives taken too soon, and empty chairs at the dinner table for the families they leave behind. It's about parents losing children they love, children losing brothers and sisters, classmates losing friends, families and communities forever scarred. Over half the people murdered in Cook County this year were under 30 years of age. They had lives to live, families to care for and love, contributions they could make to this world. All of that was violently ended by a bullet. I think of young Michael Moultrie, MJ, a 4-year-old boy. He was getting his hair braided in an apartment in Woodlawn one afternoon in September. Car pulled up in front, 3 people jumped out and started firing at the building. 2 bullets hit him in the head. He died 48 hours later. 8 victims who were shot, 5 of them fatally in a mass shooting in Inglewood in June. One of them was Shermetria Williams. She was just getting ready to graduate from Country Club Hills Tech that very same day. Another, Denise Mathis, killed, leaving behind 5 children. I think of Woom Sing Se, a 71-year-old grandfather, murdered outside his home in Chinatown last week, shot more than 20 times in an execution-style killing by a so-called ghost gun. If you're not familiar with that term, please learn. That's a gun that's untraceable, assembled from parts with no serial numbers. And remember Azul de la Garza, 18-year-old who had an early start in social justice as a youth organizer in Gage Park. Azul was shot and killed while sitting in a parked car in West Elton neighborhood. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and loved ones, but as I've said many times, thoughts and prayers are not enough. Every single person who's been victimized by gun violence deserves justice. It's important that we solve these crimes and hold shooters accountable, but we also need to prevent these shootings from happening in the first place. Prosecutions after funerals don't bring back those we lost. Preventing violence requires all of us and an all-hands-on-deck effort. Coordinated, evidence-informed strategies that combine the work of law enforcement, community-based organizations, schools, the faith community, public health agencies, the business community, and virtually everyone else. One critical focus of prevention must be gun trafficking. Chicago is awash in guns, and they're largely being trafficked in from other places, elsewhere in Illinois and other states. In June, the Biden administration established the Department of Justice Firearms Trafficking Strike Force here in Chicago under the leadership of U.S. Attorney John Losh, who will testify today. I joined Attorney General Garland when he visited on July 22nd to announce the launch. The strike force brings federal, state, and local prosecutors and law enforcement agencies together to investigate and dismantle firearms trafficking schemes. Let's be clear. If we want to reduce shootings, we need to reduce the flow of illegal guns into this city and state. This is what the strike force is tasked to do. And we'll hear as well from Kristen DeTinio, the special agent in charge of ATF here in Chicago. I also look forward to hearing what the DOJ strike force is doing to combat straw purchasing. Straw purchasing came home to Chicago last August. My wife and I joined the thousands of people at Rita High School in Beverly when CPD officer Ella French held the memorial service was held for her. She had been killed on the street, and her partner, Carlos Yanez Jr., who I understand Congressman Garcia is friends of his family, he was seriously wounded. I pray for him every day. There was a routine traffic stop that ended up in one officer killed and another seriously wounded. What did we learn about the weapon they used? It was a murder weapon that was straw purchased in Indiana. I wrote Attorney General Garland and asked that the strike force make it a priority to focus on combating straw purchases. We'll also discuss with our witnesses how agencies are working across state lines, and we'll discuss investigative tools like crime gun tracing, NIBIN statistics. We'll also hear on our second panel from Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown. 85% of law enforcement is state and local. We want to make sure that the 15%, the federal side of it, is doing its part. I look forward to hearing from the superintendent about what we can do at the federal level to make his job better. And I look forward to hearing from the CPD and how they are trying to build new relationships and better relationships with people in the community. That's where community-based violence intervention programs also come in. We'll hear from the University of Chicago Crime Lab, which evaluates and supports programs like Ready Chicago that are producing meaningful results. Studies show these problems can reduce violence. There are many layers to the gun violence epidemic. I want to salute Governor Pritzker and acknowledge that he declared gun violence a public health crisis in Illinois last month. We have done so finally at the federal level. Today we'll hear from the Principal Deputy Director of CDC, our nation's public health agency. The CDC doesn't just study coronavirus and diabetes. It applies its strategy to health challenges in our community, including violence. So I'll lay out the mechanics here. We are joined by several members of the Illinois Congressional Delegation, and I'm glad that they're here. I'm going to recognize them first and give them an opportunity to make brief member statements. I've been proud to partner with them, and I'll continue to. Senator Duckworth could not make this hearing this morning, but she's all in. She and I will be working together on this issue. After we hear from our House colleagues, we'll turn to our first panel. After I introduce and swear in the witness, each one will have 5 minutes for an oral statement and then questions and answers. Then we'll turn to our second panel. I now want to recognize my colleagues from Congress. I think Congresswoman Schakowsky is first up, and then Congressman Davis and Congressman Quigley. Sorry, I understand Congressman Davis is first up. Seniority is a very important thing in our business. Congressman Davis, my friend, take it away.